My presentation won't be quite as exciting, I'm afraid, but very necessary, I think, to your deliberation. What I'm going to do is go through a general overview of the zoning, talk about some of the details, and explain it a little bit. So this is a proposed mixed-use overlay district or a planned unit development. The purposes of the BirdsEye mixed-use overlay district are to facilitate development of a mix of uses including manufacturing, research development, retail, office, restaurant, and live-work residences. These are all the outlined purposes in the zoning. To provide more mixed-use investment opportunities, to maximize development of the potential of the BMOD, to stimulate the general economy of the city and Gloucester Harbor, to promote the historic assets of the district, the natural environment while improving its infrastructure and introducing high-quality design and development, to create view corridors, as you saw earlier, and to provide enhanced and more public access to the waterfront, and finally to provide a range of housing choices for individuals and households of diverse incomes. As you've seen by all of the beautiful slides earlier, the site is approximately 3 acres. It's map 1, lot 22 and lot 23, as we show here. And the district itself is outlined in green. There's some questions about whether or not this would be considered spot zoning. And the answer is no, for a number of reasons. First of all, it's an overlay district such that the underlying zoning remains unchanged. This particular tool is known as a planned unit development, is specifically allowed under paragraph 4 of section 9 of chapter 40A. Additionally, the courts have found that it's not spot zoning where a zoning amendment is in accordance with a well-considered plan for the public welfare. And that further, you should not necessarily consider the potential economic benefit to the owner of the rezoned parcel, especially where the general public is benefited or where, due to the changes of the character or use of the surroundings, the public health, moral, safety, and welfare will all be promoted. And finally, it's very rare that spot zoning would occur on an acre of more than 2 acres. Excuse me, on an area of more than 2 acres. So where else has this occurred in Massachusetts? Well, I've provided a list of just a few other communities that have adopted planned unit developments across the Commonwealth. There are 10 communities listed here, and there are many, many more. It's not an unusual thing. It just happens to be that you don't have a planned unit development provision in your ordinance right now, but it's certainly not an unusual tool. So what is a planned unit development, and is it something that's going to take away the control and oversight of the special permit granting authority, in this instance the City Council? And the answer is no. In fact, the City Council would have kind of 2 bites at the apple and kind of be able to participate in the forming of the overall design. So the first step is the submittal of the master plan. That plan would show the area of land to be proposed to be developed in the PUD, and the uses proposed in that plan, and whether any of those uses would require a special permit, because of course the underlying district includes some by right uses. It would also include the dimensions and infrastructure shown on the plan. And so in this way, it's a public hearing. The City Council would participate in this process and issue an approval or not. They would approve it if it's consistent with the purposes of the ordinance, if the uses are compatible within the plan that are being proposed, and that if the dimensional standards, parking requirements, and design standards are all satisfied. Why is this important, particularly in this day and age? It's important because there is an issue with financing major commercial developments. And the betwixt and between is the City Council wants to see what the concept is, but the developer needs to know that something's going to be permitted there in order to get financing for the development. And so this enables both the City Council to understand what the parameters are, but the developer to at least have a concept to go out and say, okay, I've got the overall permit. If I build it within this permit, I'm going to be okay to move forward, which is something that's much more attractive to investors. The second step is to actually then permit the special permits, to provide the special permits. And that can be done either overall or in sections in the PUD. Again, notice and public hearing before the City Council is provided. And the PUD would be approved if it's an economic benefit to the community, if it provides live-work housing, if it shows consistency with the building design as outlined in the ordinance, if it provides adequate parking, and if it offers the pedestrian connections or other PUD uses. These, of course, are just overviews. There are much more detail provided in the ordinance. In addition, it would have to comply with your regular special permit section in section 1.8.3 of the ordinance. And I would also note here that you could actually hear both the master plan and an application for the special permit at the same time, or combinations thereof. Step 3 in this process is what happens after a special permit is granted. So there are the by right uses and those granted by a special permit. And to facilitate re-tenanting and development, the following changes of use are permitted by right without further review or approval, where the gross square footage is not increased and where there is no exterior change to the buildings. So from a use permitted by right and approved as part of the PUD master plan, so you've already seen it once, to any other use permitted by right within the same use cluster. And the use clusters are like uses which are presented in the ordinance, and I'll review those in a moment. Or from a use permitted by the PUD special permit to any other use allowed by right, or one that's by right by the same special permit within the same use cluster. So what are the by right uses? Interestingly enough, we did not propose any new by right uses in this district. These are all of the uses that are existing in the marine industrial district. There are no new uses offered here.